I would like to thank each of you for coming to this reflection and rosary on the eve of the feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe. We all know that in 1492 Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Columbus's fleet was made up of 3 ships. One was called the Nina, one was the Pinta, and there was also the Santa Maria. We all know this, but have we ever thought about the English translation of these names? Let's start with Nina, and the English translation would be young girl, certainly a virgin. Most scholars believe that Mary was a teenager when Christ was born, and she was most certainly also a virgin. The second ship was named Pinta, and the English translation of Pinta is paint or painted. Keep in mind that the image of Our Lady of Guadalupe was painted by God. Finally, the most famous ship, the ship Christopher Columbus himself sailed on, was the Santa Maria. Santa Maria is, of course, named after the Blessed Virgin Mary, Saint Mary. So if we put all 3 of these together, we end up with young woman, painted, Virgin Mother. Now, does this sound familiar to anyone here? 39 years after Columbus sailed the ocean blue, Our Lady appeared to Juan Diego in 1531. It is important to understand what it was like in that country prior to her appearance. In 1521, 10 years before Mary's apparition to Juan Diego, Hernando Cortez had conquered Mexico City. In 1523, Franciscan missionaries came to evangelize the people. They were so successful that the Diocese of Mexico City was established in 1528. Now think about this. Jamestown, the first permanent English colony, was not established until 1607. Juan Diego and many of his family members were among these early converts to Christianity. He was baptized Juan Diego in 1525. Now, if we look at our culture today, it might seem as frightening to some. There is a sense that our Catholic worldview is not welcome. Some people, even some in our church, feel confusion about what it means to be Catholic. A culture of death and darkness seem to oppose God's love. But this is not the first time the Church has encountered such a moment. In the 1500s, these were also a tumultuous time. At the very beginning of the century, in 1517, Martin Luther and the Protestant Rebellion started. Then the English Rebellion of King Henry VIII began in 1534. But the Catholic Church responded with the Counter-Reformation. However, by that time, millions of people left the Catholic Church. It seemed to be a time of waywardness and chaos. How could the eternal Church of Christ survive? This would be accomplished by sending the Mother of God, but not to the Old World, Europe, but to the New World. Specifically, Mary appeared at the hill of Tepeyac in 1531 to ask a 57-year-old peasant man named Juan Diego to speak to Bishop Zumarraga about building a chapel there in her honor. One must also not forget that Juan Diego had grown up under Aztec oppression. The Aztec religious practices included human sacrifice, and they play an interesting and integral role in the story, because every major Aztec city had a temple pyramid which was about 100 feet high, and on top of this was erected an altar. Upon this altar, the Aztec priests offered human sacrifice to their god, who was called the lover of hearts and the drinker of blood. They cut out the beating hearts of their victims, usually adult men, but sometimes children. Considering that the Aztecs controlled 371 towns, and the law required 1,000 human sacrifices for each town with a temple pyramid, that means that over 50,000 human beings were sacrificed each year. Now, early in the morning of December 9, 1531, Juan Diego was walking the 9-mile walk to attend Holy Mass. Yes, that's correct. He walked 9 miles to attend Mass. That meant he walked 9 miles back after Mass. As he walked along Tepeyac Hill, he began to hear beautiful music, and he saw a beautiful lady who called his name, Juanito, Juan Diego. He approached and she said, "Know for certain, least of my sons, that I am the perfect and perpetual Virgin Mary, Mother of Jesus, the true God, through whom everything lives, the Lord of all things near and far. the Master of heaven and earth. It is my earnest wish that a temple be built here to honor me. Here I will demonstrate, I will manifest, I will give all my love, my compassion, my help, and my protection to the people. I am your merciful mother, the merciful mother of all of you who live united in this land, and of all mankind, of all those who love me, of those who cry to me, of those who seek me, and of those who have confidence in me. Here I will hear their weeping, their sorrow, and will remedy and alleviate all their multiple sufferings, necessities, and misfortunes. She told Juan Diego to go tell Bishop Zumarraga of her desire for a church to be built at that site. Juan Diego asked our Blessed Mother for her name. She responded in his native language and said, "The one who crushes the head of the serpent." Now Bishop Zumarraga was a saintly man, very just and compassionate. He built the very first hospital, library, and university in the Americas. He was also known as the protector of the Indians, entrusted by Emperor Charles V to enforce his decree issued in August of 1530 stating that no person shall dare to make a single Indian a slave, whether in war or in peace. Bishop Zumarraga listened patiently to Juan Diego and said he would reflect on the matter, understandably doubting such a strange story. Juan Diego went back to Tepeyac and reported the bishop's response to Mary. She instructed him to try again, so the next day he did. However, this time was a little bit more difficult to see the bishop, but Juan Diego eventually did see the bishop, and the bishop once more listened patiently. However, the bishop asked him to bring back a sign from Mary to prove that the story was true. Juan Diego went and reported this to the Blessed Mother, who told him to return the next day to receive this sign for the bishop. However, on December 11th, Juan Diego spent the entire day caring for his very sick uncle. His uncle asked Juan Diego to go and bring a priest who would hear his confession and administer last rites. So on December 12th, Juan Diego set out again, but he avoided Tepeyac Hill because he was ashamed that he had not returned to the previous day as the Blessed Mother had requested. While walking a different route, the Blessed Mother stopped him and said, "Hear and let it penetrate into your heart, my dear little son. Let nothing discourage you, nothing depress you. Let nothing alter your heart or your countenance. Also, do not fear any illness or vexation, anxiety or pain. Am I not here who am your mother? Are you not under my shadow and protection? Am I not your fountain of life? Are you not in the folds of my mantle, in the crossing of my arms? Is there anything else that you need?" Mary assured Juan Diego that his uncle would not die and that his health had been restored. As for the sign for the bishop, Mary told Juan Diego to go to the top of the mountain and pick some flowers. He went up the hill, which was dry, and it was a barren place, which had cactus, but he found up there roses very similar to ones grown over in Europe, but which were foreign to Mexico. He gathered the roses in his tilma, which is a garment like a poncho. He brought them to Mary, and Mary arranged them in his tilma and said to take them to the bishop. Juan Diego proceeded to go see the bishop again. After waiting for a while to see the bishop, he repeated his message to the bishop and opened his tilma to present the roses. However, the bishop saw not only the beautiful flowers, but also the image of Our Lady of Guadalupe on Juan Diego's tilma. Bishop Zumarraga wept at the sight of the Blessed Mother and asked forgiveness for doubting. He took the tilma and laid it on the altar in his chapel. By Christmas of that year, an adobe structure was built atop Tepeyac Hill in honor of our Blessed Mother, Our Lady of Guadalupe, and it was dedicated on December 26, 1531, the feast of St. Stephen the Martyr. Now December 9th marks the feast day of St. Juan Diego, and December 12th marks the feast day of Our Lady of Guadalupe. Now that we know a little bit more about the story, let's take a look at the miraculous things about this. There's even stumbled science. The Spanish rulers of the native population were brutal, and war between them and the people seemed inevitable. In 1531, Bishop Zumarraga, the Archbishop of Mexico City, prayed to Our Lady for peace. As a sign that his petition would be granted, he asked to receive roses native to his home region of Castile, Spain. When Our Lady told Juan Diego to present Bishop Zumarraga her request that a church be built on the top of Tepeyac Hill, Bishop Zumarraga was skeptical until he saw the roses which had come from his own country and not native to Mexico. When he saw these and the miraculous image, he knew that his prayer had been answered. Now let's get to the image and ask the first obvious question. How can a tilma made of cactus fiber last for almost 500 years? In addition, infrared studies of the image reveal other unexplainable phenomena. The image was not painted, and the color did not penetrate the fibers as would paint. Weaving with such irregular fibers, such as in the tilma, also produce a rough surface which would have distorted any simple surface painting, yet the image one sees is clear and undistorted. Richard Kuhn, the 1938 Nobel Prize winner in chemistry, found that the image did not have any natural animal or mineral colorings. Given that there were no synthetic colorings in 1531, it is unexplainable to science how this was colored. In addition, there is no undersketch or underdrawing on the image. Infrared photography has demonstrated that there is no sketching on the image whatsoever. Dr. Philip Callahan, a research biophysicist from the University of Florida, explains that it is inconceivable that an artist in the 16th century would paint a portrait without first doing a drawing on it. Making an undersketch prior to painting a portrait goes back to antiquity. Such an exquisite depiction on textile made from cactus fiber is inexplicable, given the lack of a sketch. The image has also lasted and shows no sign of deterioration. Juan Diego's tilma is made of a rough cactus fiber, which normally disintegrates in 15 to 30 years, yet the image of Guadalupe has remained intact for over 488 years without fading or cracking. Moreover, it was subjected to candle smoke for many, many years, which should have accelerated the process of deterioration. The natural lifespan of a cloak made with fiber from this plant should only be about 30 years. In addition, in 1778, a worker accidentally spilled strong nitric acid on a large portion of the image. However, to everyone's astonishment, only slight stains appear which can be seen in the upper right side of the image. In addition, in 1921, a bomb concealed in some flowers was placed on the altar directly under the image. When the bomb detonated, the marble altar rail and windows 150 feet away were shattered, but the image was left unharmed. Another miraculous thing of the image is that the stars which appear on the image are astronomically correct. In 1983, Dr. Juan Hernandez and Father Mario Rojas Sanchez discovered that the stars on the image correspond precisely to the constellations of the winter sky on December 12, 1531. Incredibly, the constellations are shown as viewed from outside of the heavens. In other words, this would be in reverse. It is as if we have a picture from someone looking at it from outside of the universe. It is a snapshot of heaven and earth from the very moment that Juan Diego saw Our Lady. Also, the constellation Virgo, which represents virginal purity, appears over the area of Mary's heart, signifying her immaculate and virginal purity. And the constellation Leo the Lion is over her womb. The lion represents Jesus Christ because Christ is a lion of the tribe of Judah. This emphasizes that Christ, the King, is present in Mary's womb. The perfect placement of stars in their various constellations illustrates the infinite intelligence behind the miraculous image. Now, this does not tell us that horoscopes are good or astrology is good, but God named the constellation, and He named them to tell a story. However, we don't use the constellation to tell us what's going to happen in our lives. Next, we have the miraculous things about Mary's eyes. Mary's eyes in this image are astonishingly lifelike. Of all the characteristics of this image, this may be the most interesting. In 1929, Alfonso Marcu, the official photographer of the old Basilica of Guadalupe in Mexico City, discovered a clear image of a bearded man reflected in the right eye of the Virgin. He informed the authorities of the basilica, who told him to keep complete silence about this discovery, which he did. The bearded man seems to go along with contemporary pictures of Juan Diego. No human painter could have possibly foreseen putting very small images of Juan Diego into the eyes of the Virgin so that later science could detect them. But in 1956, ophthalmologist Dr. Rafael Torja examined the eyes of the Virgin's image with an ophthalmoscope in great detail. He observed the apparent human figure in the corneas of both eyes, and that the eyes looked strangely alive when examined. Earlier in the same year, Dr. Javier Torello Bueno certified that the distortions of the images agreed with the curvature of the cornea. Jose Este Tonsman, a Peruvian ophthalmologist, examined Mary's eyes in the image at 2,500 times magnification. He was able to identify 13 individuals in both eyes at different proportions, just as the human eye would reflect the image. It appeared to be at the very moment Juan Diego unfurled the tilma before Bishop Zumarraga. Dr. Jorge Escalante Padilla, a surgical ophthalmologist, reported the discovery of small veins on both of the eyelids of the image. In the 1970s, a Japanese optician who was examining the eyes fainted. Upon recovering, he stated that the eyes were alive and looking at him. Incredibly, when Our Lady's eyes are exposed to light, the pupils contract. When light is withdrawn, they return to their dilated state. In 1979, when working with digitized high-resolution images of the tilma magnified at 2,500 times, Dr. Jose Este Tonsman discovered that in addition to the human others had previously seen, other figures were reflected in the Virgin's eyes, a total of 13 people. Tonsman said he believes the reflection transmitted by the eyes of the Virgin Mary of Guadalupe is the scene from December 9, 1531, during which Juan Diego showed his tilma, with the image to Bishop Juan Zumarraga and the others present. Nuclear physicist Dr. Charles Wallig also pointed that the Blessed Mother must have been invisibly present when Juan Diego was presenting the roses to Bishop Zumarraga, and that the tilma acted like a photographic plate that captured her image and the reflection of the images in her eyes. Another amazing thing, miraculous, about the image is that Mary assumes a different ethnicity depending on one's vantage point. It is remarkable that at one distance Our Lady appears to be a Native American, but at another distance she appears to be of European descent. This miraculous feature seems to show the unity of the two peoples and the two cultures in light of the true faith of Christ. Mary implored the people of the New World to live as one. One of my personal favorites is how scientists have reported the image is always at 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, which as we know is the temperature of the human body. It's a demonstrable fact that no matter what the surrounding temperature, season, or weather, that the image always remains at 36.5 degrees Celsius or 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, the normal temperature of the human body. This was reported by Janet Barber in her research, The Tilma and Its Miraculous Image. Also, Dr. Carlos Fernandez de Castillo, a Mexican gynecologist, after carefully examining the tilma and the image of the pregnant Madonna, concluded that the dimensions of her body were that of an expectant mother at the end of gestation. In addition to all these miraculous things, it is important to see how the native population of Mexico interpreted the image of Our Lady. This image is a pictograph which could be read and understood by the Aztec Indians. The indigenous Indian population recognized that the image of Our Lady of Guadalupe shows that Christianity was superior to other belief systems, including their own. The Indians saw something in the image of Our Lady that the Spaniards could not comprehend. In that period, the Indians did their writing in hieroglyphics, so to them, To them, this image was like a hieroglyphic letter. To the Indians, the image depicted a beautiful lady standing in front of the sun, a sign to them that she was greater than the sun god whom they worshipped. On the tilma, Our Lady's eyes are looking down with humility and compassion. This shows that she is human and not God. The crescent or moon beneath her feet showed that their moon god was less than nothing, since she was standing on the moon. The stars that they thought so much of were only a part or portion of her mantle. The stars also signify that she comes from heaven, and she is the queen of the heaven. In fact, as we mentioned, the constellations are in the exact position as appeared before the dawn on the morning of December 12, 1531. Her hands are joined in prayer, and therefore she is not God, but clearly there is one greater than she, and she points her finger to the cross on her brooch to show who is greater. At her throat was a brooch with a small black cross in the center, reminding them that this was the emblem of the Spanish friars, and there was one greater than she. Her robe is colored rose or pale red and covered with Aztec flowers, symbolic of an Aztec princess. In the center of her robe, overlying her womb, is a 4-petal flower in the shape of a cross, which is the sign of the divine and the center of the cosmic order of the Aztec. The Virgin's baby Jesus is divine and the new center of the universe. The fur on her cuffs symbolize royalty. She wears a black maternity band signifying that she is with child. An angel with eagle wings supports the Mother of God. The eagle was the bird of the sun. Here the eagle is the servant of the Virgin. She holds her mantle in one hand and robe with the other, signifying the son she bears is from both heaven and earth. The intelligence, divine intelligence that constructed the image of Guadalupe, conveyed exactly the message that these Indians needed to hear to abandon their false notions of God and their idolatrous practices. It is extremely insightful and well beyond anything that human beings could imagine. Reading this image caused millions of Indians to convert to the Catholic faith. The stars on the tilma signify that she comes from heaven and is the queen of the heaven. As mentioned earlier, these constellations are in the exact position as when she appeared. How can this be possible except from God? There was also a miracle which happened in 2007 on the image itself. On April 24, 2007, an unusual light in the famed image of Mary at the Shrine of Guadalupe happened immediately after that city legalized abortion. According to one account, in the Mass, which was offered for aborted children, while many of the faithful were taking photographs of the Tilma of Tepeyac, which was exposed and venerated in the Basilica, the image of the Virgin began to erase itself, to give place to an intense light which emanated from her abdomen, constituting a brilliant halo having the form of an embryo. Below, center, engineer Louis Girault, who studied the picture and confirmed the authenticity of the negative, was able to specify that it had not been modified or altered. He determined that the image does not come from any reflection, but originates from inside Mary. Our Lady's urgent message was one of faith, hope, and comfort to the indigenous population who were oppressed by their Spanish overseers. In a matter of months, she ended the Aztec culture of death. The Aztec religion involved human sacrifice on an unthinkable scale. In a decade following her appearance, 10 million Indians converted to the Catholic faith, creating a vibrant community of faith that persists to this very present day. Again, to repeat, the image on the tilma was able to do what up to that time the missionaries were not able to do, namely, the image on the tilma clearly explained Christianity to the Indian people. The proof is in the fact that after the apparitions, 8 million natives of Mexico converted to Catholicism from the year 1531 to 1538. I would like to close this reflection with a prayer which was offered by St. John Paul II when he visited Guadalupe in January of 1979. It is a little bit long, but we need to ask for Our Lady's intercession, especially considering some of the legal battles that are underway in our country about life. His prayer goes like this: O Mother, help us to be faithful stewards of the great mysteries of God. Help us to teach the truth proclaimed by your Son, and to spread love, which is the chief commandment and the first fruit of the Holy Spirit. Help us to strengthen our brethren in faith. Help us to awaken hope in eternal life. Help us to guard the great treasures stored in the souls of the people of God, entrusted to us. We offer you the whole of this people of God. We offer you the church in Mexico and in the whole continent. We offer it to you as your own. You have entered so deeply into the hearts of the faithful through that sign of your presence constituted by your image in the shrine of Guadalupe. Be at home in these hearts, for the future also. Be at home in our families, our parishes, missions, dioceses, and in all peoples. Do this through the Holy Church, for she is an imitation of you, Mother, and wishes in turn to be a good mother and to care for souls in all their needs by proclaiming the gospel, administering the sacraments, safeguarding family life with the sacraments of matrimony, gathering all into Eucharistic community by means of the Holy Sacrament of the altar, and by being lovingly with them from the cradle until they enter eternity. O Mother, awaken in the younger generation readiness for the exclusive service of God. Implore for us abundant local vocations to the priesthood and consecrated life. O Mother, strengthen the faith of our brothers and sisters in the laity, so that in every field of social, professional, cultural, and political life they may act in accordance with the truth and the law brought by your Son to mankind, in order to lead everyone to eternal salvation and, at the same time, to make life on earth more human, more worthy of man. The Church that is carrying out her task among the American nations wishes to serve with all her strength and with renewed missionary spirit. Mother, enable us to serve the Church in truth and justice. Make us follow this way ourselves and lead others without ever straying along twisted path and dragging others with us. Queen of the Apostles, accept our readiness to serve unreservedly the cause of your Son, the cause of the gospel, and the cause of peace based on justice and love between individuals and peoples. Queen of Peace, save the nations and peoples of this continent, that they have so much trust in you, from wars, hatred, and subversion. Make everybody, whether they are rulers or subjects, learn to live in peace, educate themselves for peace, and do what is demanded by justice and respect for the rights of every person, so that peace may be firmly established. Amen. I would once again like to thank you for listening to this talk. And now we will pray the Rosary. Live Jesus in our hearts forever.